Hello and welcome to City 7 Business. The local markets are closed today on account of the Islamic New Year holiday. Now, laws within Dubai's real estate sector have come under much scrutiny in recent times. So, what are the key legal issues in this sector? And are the laws being enforced to the satisfaction of developers as well as investors? Well, legal firm Hadaf & Partners have conducted a survey on this very subject. And an interview aired earlier on City 7 television, I met with Michael Lunjovic, a partner at the company, to discuss the findings of the report. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you for having me.
So tell us about the respondents of the survey and what were the main findings of the report?
Well, we had a good cross-section of respondents. We had 43% that were investor-related, then there's about 20% that were developer-related, about 15% banking-related, and then also consultants and contractors making up the remainder. So there's a good cross-section. Main findings of the survey really were that people wanted more enforcement of existing laws. They wanted clearer and more laws and regulations to underpin those laws. They wanted more transparency on cancellation of projects. They wanted improved finance options, of course, and they wanted better visa options, as well as a number of other smaller findings about satisfaction with the current court system and that sort of thing.
So what were the main sort of surprises that came out of the report then?
Despite only 44% being investors, we found that over 92% said they wanted more protection for investors. So that was quite surprising when you think about the number of investors that responded versus other market participants.
Definitely.
We found that there was a very clear statement that supply-side stimulus was too strong and people wanted demand-side stimulus and probably supply-side restriction. And we also found there was a reasonable amount of dissatisfaction with the way the current court system's operating in relation to access to information, speed, and also the amount of money involved in taking legal action.
I mean, are there various concerns about the enforcement of new laws and regulations then? Yeah,
well, there are. I mean, RERA had to sort of catch up with a booming market when all the market participants didn't want regulation. They were making too much money, didn't want more paper, more regulations. And then all of a sudden the market turned. So RERA had to try to, bring in regulation very, very fast to catch a horse that had already bolted. Now, RERA's got the unenviable position of trying to catch up with all of that sort of unregulated activity from the previous years. But having said that, there are some market participants that feel that enforcement of things like the escrow law isn't happening fast enough and strong enough. Things like collecting money outside escrow, that's a crime under the escrow law, but that's not being punished in the way we'd like it to.
Now, there's also an impression that regulators actually favour developers as well. What's your take on that, and does the report sort of found as well?
Yeah, in relation to Law Number 9 and Law Number 11 and also Decree Number 6, these are very recent laws and regulations that came out in relation to terminations. And many investors feel that developers have been protected by those regulations and a lot of people have been terminated and many people feel unjustly because some of the projects aren't going ahead as fast as they were promised, some of them are not going ahead at all. There's a lot of feeling out there that those regulations are protecting investors as opposed to investors, and at the moment we have a dearth a limited number of investors, and we need more, and we're not stimulating them.
So transparency really is a key there, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Transparency is a huge issue, particularly in relation to cancellation of projects that are not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Many investors out there are stuck in a suspended state of grief. They can't actually move on with their lives because they don't know if the project's cancelled or not. There's no, construction happening on site. So they don't really know what's going on. I mean, people really want to know. They accept they'll lose money. They accept that, their money may be lost, but they want the certainty of knowing that it's lost.
Definitely. I mean, there is also a belief that longer visa options for people and investors and various developers and things will actually boost investor confidence as well. What's your take and opinion on that? Yeah,
I mean, it's a topic of much debate in relation to visas for property investment. In the UK, you don't get a visa just for investing in property, but that's a different market. They're not trying to attract expats. In Dubai, they're trying to attract the expatriate workforce. They want to, bring in more expatriates to lift growth. And many of those expatriates want to invest in property, and there might be many high net worth individuals, as an example, who may be willing to base themselves here for tax advantages. So they would look towards a more long-term visa than the current 6-monthly renewable one. Property investment's a long-term play, so there's a bit of a mismatch between a 6-monthly renewable visa and a long-term investment in property. Having said that, though, visas really need to be targeted towards the type of people that Dubai wants to attract.
Definitely.
You know, if they need doctors, education, you know, they should be targeting people of that sort of, you know, professional skills, sportsmen, that sort of thing. They might want to attract those sorts of people to lift the sporting profile.
Definitely. So do you think the government's actually doing anything seriously to try and sort of implement these rules at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, these sorts of surveys are designed to sort of give feedback. I think there are, you know, many moves on many of the topics that we've discussed in the survey. You know, it just takes a little bit of time to bring those through. You have to remember that a lot of these issues are federal. Yeah. We've got 7 emirates, and we need to consider the rights and the interests of all the other emirates as well in some of those federal laws. So it takes time. I think the response has been adequate, but we'd like to see a little bit more enforcement and probably more public enforcement.
That's all we've got time for today, but thanks so much for coming in. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
On the way after the break, we'll be joined by another guest from an earlier show. That's when City 7 Business continues. Stay with us.